What are some of the biggest challenges that you each have experienced when it comes to bow hunting, especially going after some of these bigger whitetails that are, experienced, they know their way ins and out of the woods, they've been able to avoid hunters? What are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced while archery hunting?
Probably the biggest challenge, making that transition from rifle hunting to bow hunting for me was really focusing in and honing in on what that habitat looks like for big bucks that are cruising, where it's going to put you in a range of being able to get a shot off with a bow. So you really start looking for pinch points and in areas where you can access easily, but still cover a large part of the funnel or travel area. Really paying attention to, as a rifle hunter, you can know there's a lot of trails, but you have to really pay attention to which trails are frequently used, and really trail cameras kind of help with developing that and kind of being your reconnaissance in the woods. I'm a big advocate of trail cameras. That's probably your biggest challenge, is finding that area where you can locate a big buck, get in without disturbing him, and then moving in for the kill shot.
Go ahead, Caleb.
So I wrote down 4 things. I think there's obviously more than this, but the biggest deal is getting close. So you don't have the luxury of sitting in a clear cut looking, over a field and being able to shoot 300 yards. So you've got to get close, which, like Andy was saying, you've got to know deer habitat. You've got to be able to get within that range of them. So you have to pinpoint where they're going to be. So that's one thing. And then your movement when you're close, that's a big factor, because when you're within 20 yards, especially with the gear that I'm using, I've got to be within 20 yards. Drawing back on a mature buck and 20 yards, they've got that sixth sense. They know something's going on. That's a really tough spot for me. And then another thing is being proficient with your gear. There's a lot of people that, I used to work at archery shop. They'd come in the last day before a season and try and get their gear set up. You want to be proficient with your gear. We owe it to these animals to make ethical shots. Get on that stuff early, and then scent makes a big difference. I mean, you can get away with, not having perfect wind, or on still days, especially if you're 200 yards away, you're probably not going to get picked off. You're within 20 yards, you've really got to start, paying attention to scent, using milkweed, seeing where you're going. And I think that those are the 4 main things that I think of when I talk about transitioning from long range rifle hunting to getting up close with a bow.
Go ahead, Zach.
Great points made so far. Yeah, probably if you're starting from the beginning, some of the toughest things in my experience was being able to answer the question, why is a mature buck going to walk within 20 yards of my tree? And that's a question I still ask myself every time I go in, pick a new area, start doing deductive reasoning, breaking things down in the simplest form, picking a location. I want to know why that deer is going to be within 20 yards of my tree. Playing the wind and the thermals is huge. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort and studying. But I guess if we're talking brand new to archery, one of the things, a point that was made, being proficient with your equipment. One of the advantages you have of just starting into archery, it's easier to be taught the fundamentals than somebody that's been shooting and has bad habits and the change. So very important to get somebody to teach you proper form and the fundamentals of bow hunting. And like it was said too, you can't expect to go up, pick it up a week before archery season starts. This is a year-long pursuit in order to do it correctly.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yep. So I'll just kind of reiterate what the other guy said, getting close. I mean, I grew up rifle hunting all my life and then started bow hunting when I was a teenager. And that was the main difference, is I was really good at picking a rifle spot and seeing deer, but seeing deer and shooting a deer is totally different when it comes to archery hunting. Something else I think that's kind of overwhelming getting into bow hunting is all the gear selections, the price of the gear between bows and sights and releases and tree stands and anything else. And I think, I started ground hunting from the ground when I had a bow. I had a hand-me-down bow that didn't fit me. I killed deer with it. I didn't go out looking for mature deer necessarily. I shot a couple fork deer, a couple basket 2-year-old, 1.5-year-old deer, and started getting comfortable with my setup and progressing over time, saving money. And, it wasn't until like 3 years ago, I finally bought a bow that I went and shot a bunch of bows and kind of fit one to myself. I shot, kind of hand-me-downs and whatever I could afford for a long time. So don't think you have to have it all in 1 year, just piece by piece. And the same, not only with the gear, but with kind of mastering your craft and getting better bow hunting, have realistic expectations, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And don't be ashamed of that either. I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Go ahead, Brian.
I think one of the biggest things that I kind of struggled with, I guess, when I first started hunting, especially bow hunting, was ranging the animal too. That can be kind of tricky, especially if you're up in a tree and you typically haven't hunted in a tree before. Things look farther away than they are. Sometimes they look closer than they are. And, we have rangefinders these days, but a lot of times a deer comes in and you don't have time to range it, or you have a short window in which you can shoot it. You don't have time to range it. Just when you get up in your stand, just thinking about, getting that rangefinder out first thing and ranging, key identifiers. So if a deer walks past that, you have a general idea how far away it is, because, 5 yards with a bow can mean the difference from killing it or not killing it. It could be, that much of a difference, that small of a difference. Unlike a rifle, you could be 50 yards off. Sometimes you're still going to kill it. So learning how to range animals with your naked eye, especially with the terrain that you're going to be hunting in. Open country is a lot different than wooded areas. So if you're by a field, a deer might look different to you how far away it is than if you're in a wooded area. So, just getting up in a tree and kind of, guessing the yardage of a tree or something, then verifying it with your rangefinder and just getting used to, how that looks, because it's a key factor that, I think I struggled with. There's probably a couple deer when I was 12 years old that I could have shot that I thought was like, 50 yards away, but they were probably like 30 yards away, something silly like that. When I started out with a small bow. It was only like 40 pounds. So the difference between 25 yards and 30 yards, if I was off by 5 yards, I'm either, missing it low or getting it. It could be that small of a difference. So I would learn how to range things and learn how to range things with your naked eye as well.
Zach, you got anything to add?
No, I'm just listening to great points.
All righty. We are going to, I think that's pretty much covers all of that. So
I was going to throw, I really like Brian's point about the rangefinder, and something you can do too to kind of practice and use your natural ability to range stuff. I like guessing, like picking out an object and saying, okay, I think that's 17, and then I'll range it to see how good I am with just gauging it myself, because every tree stand's a different height, maybe a different elevation. So that's something too you can practice, and you'll become proficient at it over time, so you can actually judge it on the fly, and use your rangefinder to kind of check your judgment.
One thing I like to do, if you like to gamble a little bit, is even when I'm out practicing, I'll set my target out at a random spot and just walk around my yard and, shoot and just guess the yardage without even ranging it. And, if you mess up and miss, that's shame on you. It kind of teaches you to get better a little bit quicker. So that's a game I play sometimes when I'm practicing. But to everybody else's point, practice is key with archery. Anybody could go out with a rifle and within, 10 shots be proficient enough to shoot something at 100 yards. It's not that easy with the bow. You need to spend a lot of time, practicing at different ranges in different wind conditions. And, I go out in the cold, I go out when it's snowing, in the rain, all these different things to try and help make myself better. Because, I've been doing it since I was 12, but, even before that, I've shot archery competition, but, you can still screw things up pretty easily out there. So the more real life situations you can get yourself in, the better off you'll be.
Keep in mind that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't get overwhelmed. And like Eric said, don't think you got to buy the latest and greatest everything in 1 year. You'll get overwhelmed real quick.